comes out. You talked about Andrew Yang, who ran for president, and he's like this independent guy. He's definitely more on the liberal, neoliberal, technocratic side, but he genuinely seems like a really nice person who wants to solve problems and seek compromise and not demonize others. And so that's why I think we approach this with a positive attitude toward him. And also a positive attitude, as you mentioned, to the idea of third parties and breaking the system. But I thought that in this CNN interview with Jim Acosta, Yang, some questions were asked that are very, very gaping about his forward party. But to be clear, though, the interview just began with Acosta being a jerk. Take a listen.
Is this an attempt to pump up book sales?
Well, I'd have to say this would be a pretty silly way to go about it, given that we have co-founded a national party that now has tens of thousands of Americans signed up, co-chaired by former governor of New Jersey, Christine Todd Whitman. And the fact is 62% of Americans
But are you
want
just
a
promoting
third party.
yourself, I guess is what I'm asking is, are you just out there promoting yourself with this?
Again, Jim, there are, as you can easily imagine, there are hundreds of better ways to go about promoting a book than starting a political party to do so. I mean, I'm building this party because 62% of Americans want it. We're more polarized than ever. And the fact is the two parties have divvied up the country so that 79 to 90% of races are uncompetitive. Most of the people watching this right now aren't even living under a two-party system. They're living under one party.
So, Hannah, to me, it's pretty obvious that Acosta's being a jerk. He's making this interview way more hostile and personal than it needs to be. And I don't think Yang's doing this to just promote himself. He could be just, funneling money towards paid ads, and he's independently wealthy. Like, I think he's coming from an earnest place. I think he did a good job explaining why we need a third party. So that's just the first bit of this. We'll get into the where it kind of derails in a sec. But that was my initial impression of this interview was really not positive towards Jim Acosta here.
Well, Jim Acosta's always a jerk. That's kind of his shtick, right? Like, I've never really found him to be a super likable guy. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Andrew Yang seems genuine. He seems like a nice person. He seems like someone who genuinely wants to come in and find solutions. And I think he experienced just how unworkable the two-party system is. He realizes he's in a position of prominence and he has the wealth to maybe do something about it. So as far as that goes, I say kudos, all the applause in the world, right? There's so many people who have wealth and positions of power who don't undertake this, who don't try to come in and do this, because it's hard and you're going to have a lot of vitriol spewed your way. And as a whole, you're going to really put yourself in a position where you're hated and your family's hated. And you have to go have media interviews like this where people are mean to you. Like, I really fail to think that somebody would just do this as a self-serving sort of means. If you were really self-serving, you'd go the easy route and run for the Democrat Party and just govern how you want. So, yeah.
I agree. I think it's not about self-promotion, but I do think this effort that Yang is launching with the Forward Party may be hopelessly naive, and it may be just not really sufficient as a political project. Like, let me read you from the website for the Forward Party what they say they're all about. Welcome to the Forward Party. Forward Party is fighting for the American people with practical, common-sense solutions. While other political parties look to divide America into different camps, the Forward Party aims to bring them together. Join us on the most critical mission of our era, building the foundation for a representative and stable democracy. Not left, not right, forward. I feel like I just read a bunch of words that don't say anything.
Mm-hmm. That's how I often feel when I get into politics. I'm like, but what do you want to do? But they don't. I think that's part of the whole dog and pony show of politics, is never being explicit about what you actually want to do and achieve. But again, this is why I've been curious. I've been watching, and I'm always rooting for there to just be more options in our system. But it has been so impossible for me to tell if there's, anything there for me. And that's sort of, but, we're not party people. You and I are both just extreme independents, I think, who probably, and this is what I've always said, I think as a whole, I think the barriers to overcome for third parties are so significant and so entrenched in our system that the work that would have to be done to get a third party where it could actually be competitive, the money that it would require is ghastly, and it doesn't actually seem to be the pragmatic way forward. I also firmly believe that any political party that does come to power and gets to that point will become corrupted, because I think the very nature of parties is corrupt and leads to binary thinking. And I think that's why George Washington warned us about them all the way back in his farewell address. So I'm curious. I like Yang, but I don't really know that this is where I put my hopes and dreams.
No, because they just don't stand for anything. I mean, listen to this second clip.
And the moderate population in both parties is unfortunately dwindling quickly. So the political incentives end up disproportionately empowering the 10% of extremes on both sides.
But you're going to have to come up with policy
really
positions.
Negative results.
Right,
so
but
we
Andrew,
just need a better system.
Yeah, but Andrew, you're going to have policy positions at some point. How does the Forward Party feel about Roe versus Wade? Should it have been overturned?
Well, I personally think that women's reproductive rights are fundamental human rights, but the Forward Party has not left or right, but forward stance on even the most divisive and contentious issues.
Well, what does that mean? Don't you have to take a position on something? Don't you have to take a position on something? You can't just say, well, this is a hot button issue, so I'm not going to take a position on it. You know, if you want to run the country, you're going to have to make some hard decisions, Andrew.
Again, the Forward Party is about that common sense consensus majority view, which is very clear on abortion. It's clear.
What about guns? What about assault
weapons?
weapons?
On climate change. It's actually clear on just about every issue under the sun.
Should 18?
So it's like, what is your position on abortion, guns, whatever? Well, I have my own position, but somebody else can be in the party and have the total opposite. We just common sense, middle of the road, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you have to have positions. You have to stand for something. You can't have a party that's just this kind of vacuous open tent of people who like buzzwords. I really like Andrew Yang. I understand the spirit of what he's going for, but like, you got to stand for something. Let's look at the website again, the Forward Party's priorities. I'll read you this. It's 3 priorities will unite our broad coalition and serve as the springboard for policymaking by Forward Party candidates and leaders at all levels. Free people. Revitalize a culture that celebrates difference and individual choice, rejects hate, and removes barriers so that each of us can rise to our full potential. Thriving communities. Reinvigorate a fair, flourishing economy and open society where everyone can live a good life and is safe in places where we learn, work, and live. Vibrant democracy. Reform our republic to give Americans more choices in elections, more confidence in a government that works, and more say in our future. Then their 3 main policy proposals are ranked choice voting, nonpartisan primaries, and independent redistricting commissions. Set aside whether you think those are good ideas or not. It's like all just political and election based. It's like, and these are all just, everyone wants a culture that celebrates difference and individual choices. Everyone wants a fair and flourishing economy. How are you going to get us there? What's your policy on the minimum wage, on the corporate tax, on tax increases, inflation, the Federal Reserve, like regulation, trade, immigration? Like, you can't just have an agenda. This is supposedly their platform. You can't just have an agenda that's just about buzzwords. And every American would agree with this, because you might as well just ask them, do you want a happy, rich society where everyone gets along and we all eat unicorn farts? It's like just hopelessly naive to me.
So I agree with all that. I think it is just a lot of fluff. And I really do think a lot of the things they elevate, they are things that people want. But I see them as activities that would be carried out without, like ranked choice voting, for example, is something that would largely be achieved through ballot initiatives. That's not really something that you need a political party to get to. I think this is where I tend to come down, is that I like Andrew Yang. I think he's very genuine. I love the idea of more parties, but I think he started this from a place where he didn't have that much experience in politics in general, and he's not in the weeds, right? This isn't somebody who's been a lobbyist. It's not somebody who's been super ingrained in getting things done in the political system. And that's not even a knock at him. I think that you can still achieve great things if you haven't done those things, but you need to talk to the people who have, because you're going to find out some things pretty quickly. And so to me, this initiative just seems a little bit unnecessary and aimless. And I think the things he'd like to get done could be better achieved outside of a political party, and probably would be a lot more affordable, would be a lot more realistic of a lift. And that's kind of disappointing. I hate seeing money get wasted in politics because there's so much that needs to get done. And I'm like, there are so many ways that you can actually get big things done with a pretty shoestring budget. I can't talk today. Pretty shoestring budget. And so I would love to see these kinds of people sit down with actual policy wonks or with people who spend a long time moving legislation and getting things done politically and find out ways that they can be more effective and use their resources better.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would love to see more ranked choice voting. I think that you start a coalition to get that passed state by state, focusing on a single issue, but not a whole political party. And I mean, the folks that have been friendly to or loosely associated with this range from everything from libertarians to neocons to progressives to liberals to like establishment moderates. It's just like, and if your tent is so big, then it becomes entirely meaningless. I don't know. I really like Andrew Yang. I understand where he's coming from, but I thought, you hate to, it's like that meme of the worst person you know just made a point. Jim Acosta's got a point here.
Well, I mean, the problem with the Democrat and Republican parties as they stand is they're too big tent, right? We're trying to cram everybody in the Republican Party who's even remotely on the right and make them fit under a big tent. It doesn't fit very well. And same thing on the left. We need things that are even more niche is what I would say. You need to have, things that really get a bit more into the weeds to better represent people and the ideologies, which would be things like libertarians, neocons, hate to say it, but like people who fall in that bucket, people who fall in the MAGA bucket, which are nationalists. And then on the left, you would want to have things like progressives. You'd want to have old blue dog Democrats. You'd want to have moderate Democrats. Like these are the kinds of ways we would need to actually be able to.
But they'd be ideological. Right? The sorting would be based on principles.
Yeah.
Let me just show you this tweet, this graphic that Andrew Yang put out that I thought was interesting. So he tweeted, if we stay falsely divided by the media into two camps, we clash and clash and nothing gets done. But if a new dynamic emerges, real change is possible. Then there's this graphic of these two rectangles that says partisans, and then it says forwardists. And it's like a 3D triangle pyramid thing. And I'm just like, what the does this mean, bro? Like, this is just, I want to like you. I want to support you because you seem genuinely like a great guy and you've got these good motives, but this is just utter buzzword meaninglessness.
I mean, yeah, I hate to say it, but it is. And to say that the media is the one dividing us, that's not true. We are really divided on what we think. And again, that's why you need a whole lot more representation to adequately have everybody be represented in the system, right? It doesn't help me. I'm not going to fit better in a massive big tent with tons of people I disagree with on tons of issues than I am in the GOP. Like, why would I do that? Why would I do that over the LP, right? Where I ostensibly agree with people on a lot more than I do the other parties. That's not the goal of a political party. I think, again, what he wants is bipartisanship or at least like collaboration. And that is better achieved on an issue by issue basis, because on an issue by issue basis, I can definitely team up with people across the spectrum on things like criminal justice, on war, on civil liberties, on speech, like on and on it goes. But there's going to be very different coalitions under each of those policy issues that I would team up with to get things done. But this is why, I've told people for a long time, I operate outside the party system. I operate outside the political system. I focus on issue advocacy, on getting things done at the state and local level. And I've had an immense amount of success doing that in ways that have meaningfully impacted and benefited people's lives. That's the strategy that I think makes the most sense. And I hate to say it, but I think the third party political party initiative is just, it's always going to fail because of the barriers already in our system and also like just the lack of organization behind this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think issue-based advocacy is a more promising solution. And I think that the fundamental flaw with Andrew Yang's Forward Party is this idea that rests on that actually Americans agree on everything and it's just the media and the two parties dividing us, when in fact there are deep rifts and divides between us on what we believe. There are sincerely held fractioning between people with diametrically opposed views on the very essence of this country and our principles and our policies. It's like people want to take us in completely different directions, and you can't just gloss over that with buzzwords about bipartisanship and unity and common sense solutions. It sounds lovely, but it's no actual real solution in reality.
Yeah, I agree.